Hi everybody, Scott Stanchfield here. Let's take a look at a live data and view model example. Now to start with, let's think about what our database is going to contain. I'm going to create a little movie application here. It's going to have information about actors, movies, and then the roles between them. And our actor is just going to have an ID and a name. That's it. In real life, we're going to have a lot more information, but this is just a really simple example. Our movie is going to have an ID, a title, and description. And then we're going to have a relation between the two. This is going to be a many-to-many relationship. So a role in a movie is going to be represented by a movie ID and an actor ID, and then a name of that role, and then the order that that role appears inside the credits. We're going to have several queries in our database. The ones that we're interested here are, first of all, let me get all the movies so I can display them in a list on the screen. Let me get all the actors so I can display them on the screen. Let me get the roles for a specific movie. So when I choose a movie and I want to see the details, I can get its details. If I choose an actor, let me get the movies that he was in. If I have an actor ID, I want to be able to get all the actor information. In other words, the actor object, including his name. And then similar for a movie. If I have a movie ID, let me go ahead and get the movie. So nice, simple database structure. The way we're going to structure this is here's our database with those queries inside of it. I'm going to create a view model with a bunch of types of live data inside of it. First of all, these live data here, all movies, all actors, selected movie, and selected actor. These are all going to be mutable live data. And these are not going to be mediators. These are going to be driven by data from the database or data that the user actually selects. So to start with, I'm going to make a query to the database to get all my movies and then store that in a mutable live data here. So behind the scenes, a thread's going to run. Once that thread is done fetching all the data, we're going to update the all movies, and whoever's observing it will display it on the screen. All actors, same kind of thing. Now for selected movie and selected actor, let's say the user is seeing a list of all these movies on the screen and clicks on one. At that point, we're going to set that to be the selected movie. Now when the selected movie changes, I'm going to have a little cascade here of a couple mediators. The first mediator here is cast. And what cast is going to do is take that selected movie and then go and call roles for movie to get all the role objects and hold on to them. Now keep in mind those role objects just have a movie ID and an actor ID, so we need to resolve the actors from that. So I'm going to have another mediator here that says whenever the cast changes, let me go look up each of those actors that's in that cast list. And then I'll have that resolved cast. Similar for the actor, if I had a list of actors on the screen and the user clicks on one, it's going to set selected actor. Filmography is going to be a mediator live data that listens to selected actor, and whenever the selected actor changes, I'm going to go off to the database and say get movies for actor. Boom, it's going to get those movie objects. In this particular example, I don't care what role they played in that, so I can just directly get the movies from the database directly. I don't need those intermediate role objects. Once I have my view model set up, I can then start attaching it to my user interface. So if my user interface had screens, list of movies, details for a movie, list of actors, and actor details, let's think about the flow for an application. We might have a home screen that either goes to list of movies or to list of actors. Once I'm in list of movies, if I click on one, I'm going to navigate to movie details. If I click on an actor in the list of actors, I'm going to go to the actor details. List of movies is going to get its data from the all movies live data. We can display it on the screen. When we click on something, we're going to set selected movie, which in turn is going to trigger the cast and resolved cast to get actually updated. Now note that when selected movie is updated, we're updating the movie details on the screen. The movie details is going to observe it. Movie details is also going to observe resolved cast. Because he's reserving resolved cast, he's going to, as soon as the resolved cast is updated, he's going to get the information. Now think about what might happen if resolving the cast takes a while. You might see the basic movie details immediately appear, and then a moment later, the resolved cast fills in. And that's actually nice, rather than actually having the user wait to see anything when we get the data. We're actually displaying what we can as soon as we possibly can. So as soon as the movie's available, boom, we display it. As soon as the cast is available, boom, we display that. Now we have a similar structure down here with our actors. Our list of actors is going to be driven by the all actors live data in the view model. When the actor is selected by the user, we're going to navigate to actor details. We're going to set selected actor. Actor details is observing selected actor, so he's going to update the details on the screen. Selected actor is going to update the filmography, which is then going to display on the actor details screen. So let's start by creating a new project. I'm just going to create one with an empty activity inside of it. I'm going to call it Movies. And this is going to be underneath my Live Data and View Models project there. And we'll wait for him to update. I'm going to switch over to the project view because I prefer that. And let's take a look at what we have. We have our basic activity, little user interface. We're going to modify those. But to start with, let's start by bringing in a little database. I'm going to create a new Kotlin file here called database. And let's just paste in some stuff that I set up earlier. Let's take a look at what I've defined. I've defined 3 classes, movie, actor, and role. Now I'm using data classes here. This is a special type of class in Kotlin that automatically gives you a toString, an equals, a hash code, and some other helper functions. Any of the properties that are passed in the constructor to that class are included in that toString, in that equals, and in that hash code calculation. So for a movie, I have an ID, title, and description. For an actor, I have an ID and a name. And for a role, I have movie ID, actor ID, role name, and order. So just what I said I was going to define there. Now let's take a look at our database. I set up some dummy data. This is just an in-memory database. I'm not actually using data for this yet. We're going to get to that later. But I wanted to create some very simple data for this. So I created 3 maps. The first map is a map of movies. So it's from the movie ID to movie. The second is a map of actors, actor ID to actor. The third is a map of roles. That's going to be a movie ID and then the list of the roles inside that movie ID. The to function, which is a little infix function, is going to take a key and a value and create a pair object out of it. This map of function takes a varying length argument list of pairs and then creates a map out of it. So this ends up just setting up a map of movies. So I have a movie here, M1234, the transporter, Jason Statham kicks a guy in the face, and so on. I have an actors map. These are all my actors that I'm talking about. I just took a couple actors from each of the movies. And then I have the roles, some movies, different combinations of things, real simple little database. Now I'm going to set up my queries. So somebody from the outside can ask for all movies, all actors, the roles for a movie, movies for an actor, the movie. So all movies, I'm going to take that movies map, get the values from it. So these are the values, all these movies here. I'm going to sort them by title and then return that. So I'll have them alphabetically. For the actors, I'm going to take the actors value. So that's the actual actor objects here in the map. Sort them by name, and that's going to be returned for all actors. For roles for a movie, I'm going to say roles sub movie ID. Roles is a map. This bracket syntax in Kotlin allows you to call get function behind the scenes. So this is like roles.get like you would in a normal map. That might return a null if it's not found. So I'm going to say if there are no roles for the movie found, I'm going to return an empty list. And here's our friend Elvis again, right in the middle there. If this guy is null, return empty list. Now, movies for an actor is a little bit more complex here. In order to find out the movies that an actor is in, I'm going to go to this roles map and take a look at each of these pairs. And I'm going to say if the actor appears in a role in this list, then this movie is one of my movies. So I'm going to say, let's filter down the roles. The only roles that I'm going to consider are, let's look at the value. That's this list of roles. And if there are any roles inside there such that the actor ID in the role is equal to the actor ID I'm looking for, then I'm going to return that. If there are none, roles.filter is going to be an empty list. Once I've done that, I'm going to have the pairs that actually have the actor inside of the list. So for example, if I was looking for Jason Statham, it would look through and it would find that, hey, inside this list, Jason Statham's there, he's A1. In this list, Jason Statham's there, he's A1. In this list, Jason Statham is there, he's A1, but not in this. So I get these first three out of there, just these first three. Once I have those first three, I'm going to say, let me try to look up the movie for that key. Remember, that might be null. So I'm going to say, if it's null, ignore it. I'm just going to end up with a list of movies that actually found in the movies object. And boom, that'll be movies for actor. Now I'm going to go through this type of setup in more detail in other classes. Don't worry if it seems very foreign. This is a very different way of looking at things. I'm using stream programming here. A lot of this is done inside functional languages. Kotlin allows you to do functional programming, and this type of stream programming, you get used to it after a little while. For get actor and get movie, these are real simple. I'm just going to go ahead and look up the actor in the movie. So there's my basic data model in the database. So I'm just going to leave that, come out of there. Let's create our view model. So new Kotlin class. I'm going to call it movie view model. And I'm going to have him extend Android view model. Now note that Android view model is coming up here with a line. He says he has a constructor and must be initialized. Now if I just put paren, there is no empty constructor inside Android view model. There's one that takes an application. So what I'm going to do is, instead of putting the parens there, I'm going to put Alt-Enter after Android view model. And I'm going to choose add constructor parameters. And boom. So now it created this constructor parameter from my movie view model for the application. And it's just passing it to Android view model. When we create the instance of this movie view model, it's actually going to pass that application in automatically for us. So let's start by defining our live data for the movie list and the actor list. I'm going to come in here and say val all movies equals MLD for mutable live data. I'm going to choose mutable live data here. And it's going to be a list of movies. Once I have that, I want to initialize it to something. So I'm going to try to get it from my database. So I'm going to say .apply, and this will do some initialization. I'm going to go to my database and say all movies. And that is going to become my value. Now note that this apply is going to be running in whatever thread is creating this view model. Now the view model is going to be created in our onCreate function, which is called from the user interface thread by Android. So calling it from the user interface thread, value is okay to set. If this wasn't being called from the user interface thread, I can't use value. Now let's think about this for a second. Database.allmovies. That potentially could be an expensive operation because we might have to do a lot of database fetches and getting a whole bunch of data. We don't want to do that on our user interface thread. So what I'm going to do is add in an executor for a new single thread executor. This is a little guy who can run threads for us, and he's going to manage the threads and run little bits of code that we pass to it. They're all going to be run on the same thread. So if I call the executor a bunch of times, it's going to queue them up. What I want to do inside here is, instead of saying value equals all movies, I'm going to say executor.execute. And then inside there, fetch the data and set the value. But now, because I'm calling executor.execute, I'm running on a background thread. So I can't call set value. I have to call post value. Post value will schedule a little job on the user interface thread to update this data inside of my all movies. So what I've defined here now is a mutable live data. And as soon as I create him, I kick off a thread to go ask the database to get the movies. And once that's done returning, I'm going to call post value on it, which is going to schedule a user interface thread to call set value on the all movies. So at some point, all movies will get updated. If this took 20 minutes to run for some reason, anybody observing this would initially see no data in there, and then 20 minutes later, boom, the data would arrive. Now I'm going to do the same kind of thing for the actors. Instead of a list of movies, it's going to be a list of actor, and this is going to return all actors inside of there. Boom. So now we've set up the actors and the movies. So far, so good. Now let's deal with selections. These lists will be on the screen. The user can click on them. That's going to trigger a selection of these guys. So I'm going to say val selected movie. And he, again, is going to be immutable live data for a single movie. And I don't need to initialize him. This is going to be something that starts off as null, so there's no selection. And then when the user clicks on something, we're going to set it. We're going to do the same kind of thing for actor. And boom, we have a selected actor. Now here's where things get interesting. When these change, I want to automatically look up some other data. So I'm going to use mediator live data for these. So let's first of all look at the cast. I'm going to say the cast for a movie is going to be a mediator live data, which is going to be a list of roles. And when I'm initializing him, I'm going to add a source. The source of this is going to be selected movie. So anytime selected movie is changed, I'm going to run that block of code right there. This block of code is going to be responsible for updating the cast. So let's take a look at what we're going to do inside here. We're going to want to go and run this in the background again. So executor.execute. And we're going to say database dot roles for movie. The movie is being passed in from the selected movie here as it into this little lambda here. Now notice that Android Studio is telling us it is of type movie exclamation mark. That exclamation mark is what's called a platform defined type. It means we do not know if that thing's nullable or not because it's coming from Java and it wasn't marked as nullable or non-nullable. So we're going to have to assume it might be null. If it is null, we're probably going to want to set cast to just be an empty list. So there is no cast. Hey, no movie, no cast. Makes sense, right? If it's not null, then we're going to want to execute. So let's do something like this. I'm going to say if it is not null. So in this case, if it is not null, I'm going to execute this let block, passing it in as a movie. Now notice movie here now, it says movie without a question mark or without an exclamation mark. This means that movie is definitely not null here. So I can say database roles for movie, it dot ID. Boom. And I'm going to set that to be the value. But once again, this is in a background thread, so I can't do that. I will say post value. Now, if it is null, then what I want to do is go ahead and say value equals empty list. Boom. So if we don't have a selected movie, we have an empty list of cast. Now we could have that be a null if you want to, but what this allows us to do now is that now we know that this value won't be null if I have a selected movie. What we might also want to do is initialize him to empty list. So if I take this and come up here, now when this first starts, I initialize my cast to be empty list so that if we haven't yet selected a movie, I at least have an empty list inside there. Now, based on this logic, whenever I use cast now, I can assume his value is not going to be null. Now let's take a look at what we can do with these role objects. Remember, these role objects have IDs in them. They don't actually have the actual name of the actor. So I'd like to resolve that. So I'm going to create another, call it resolved cast. And this one's going to be a mediator live data. And I don't have an object to represent this resolved cast, basically the name of the actor and the role name. So what I'm going to do here is return a pair of the name of the actor, or actually I can just return the whole actor object, that'd be fine, and the role name, which is a string. And I'm going to add a source to him. Oops, I said let instead of apply. There we go, that's better. The source is going to be the cast, so once I get this cast done, I'm going to go ahead and further look up the individual actors. And inside here, note that I'm getting a list of role. Again, it might be null. Cast, we know is not going to be null because of the way we coded this, so we can just assume that it's not null. Oops, I just realized this is actually a list of pairs. Let's make sure we say that right here. So what we're going to want to do is walk through that list of roles, and for each role, do a lookup in the database. So I'm going to say it.map. That's going to walk through this list of roles and convert each value to give us a brand new list. And the value that we're actually going to use here is the database lookup. Now, again, we're going to the database, so let's do an executor.execute to run this in the background. Then we're going to map each of the values to, let's say, create a new pair. And we're going to pass in database.getActor for it.actorID. So we're going to take that role and find out which actor it is. And then we're going to pass in it.rolename. So we're going to take that role and take the role name. So we're going to create this new pair object to return. We're going to get a list of those where each item that was in the role becomes a pair being mapped out of there. We're going to need to take this resulting map and do a post value on it so that resolved cast will get that value. So let's see why there's an error here. I'm going to float over it, and it says type inference failed, expected a list pair actor string, but I found list pair actor question mark. So what I specified up here was that the actor is not null. In this case, when I say get actor there, the actor might be null. Now I can do a couple things here. I can change this, instead of being the actor, maybe it's just the actor's name, and then be able to just say unknown actor or something like that. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to change him to be a string. Note that up here I'm saying it's non-null. So if I come here and say database get actor question mark dot name, this is going to say if the actor is not null, return the name, otherwise return null. This won't work because I said not null. So Elvis to the rescue. Actor not found. And I'll go ahead and put the actor's ID in there. So I'm going to say $it.actorID. Something like that. And now we're all nice and happy. So I now have this chain reaction. When the movie changes, cast is updated. When cast changes, resolved cast is updated. I'm not going to have anybody depending on cast directly outside of here, nor would I want to. So I can go ahead and make this guy private. He's just strictly used internally as kind of a middleman. Selected movie gets updated, we update the cast, the list of roles. The cast gets updated, we update the resolved cast. So far, so good. Now let's take a look at what happens for the selected actor. We want to get his filmography. So I'm going to say val filmography, if I can spell it, equals mediator live data list movie dot apply. So I can actually set it up. I'm going to add a source. The source is going to be selected actor. So whenever the selected actor changes, I'm going to go and do some lookups. Again, let's go to the database in a background thread. By the way, in a little bit, we're going to actually assume the database does the background lookups for us, which will simplify this stuff quite a bit, but we'll get there in a minute. So in the background, we're going to say post value database dot movies for actor it.id. Boom. So we're going to take the actor ID from the selected actor, going to go and look up the movies for the actor, and movies for the actor actually returns a list of movies. We're going to post that to filmography, and boom, we now have the data that we want to use inside of our view model. Let's create a really simple test user interface here. This user interface is just going to have some buttons on the screen to select different actors in different movies and display the results on the screen in some text views. So let's go to actually I've got them up here, activity main. And let's put a couple of pieces of information on the screen here. We're going to want to have the, the current selected movie name. So we'll have the movie name will be this guy, the title of the movie, I mean, the description of the movie, and then we will have the cast of the movie. We're also going to need the selected actor. Let's do selected actor next here. And that will be the so let's see, this one's going to be title. This one's going to be description. This one's going to be name. And let's update these on the screen. So I'm not going to have any text for him, but I will have actor name. We're going to use the tools text just so we can see something on the screen to start with here. Not going to have anything for this. It's going to be movie description. And this one will be movie, oops, wrong one. Title. There we go. So now we have some information for those guys. Let's add in, for the rest of the screen, we're going to have a section that's going to be the cast and another section that's going to be the filmography for the selected actor. So let's pull in a text view here. And let's pull another one in below him. And I'm going to make this guy go down to the bottom as well. And let's add these two into a vertical chain, which will make them float. I'm going to have this guy expand vertically and this guy expand vertically. So now they split the remaining space. I'm going to go ahead and also anchor them to the sides over here. Have them expand horizontally as well. Something kind of like that. There we go. And let me go over to the text view of this one. I'm going to put in some margins for these guys, just so things are a little bit more readable. And let's fix the text on those guys. Let's call this tools text. This will be the filmography. Hey, it might help if I could spell and type. And this one's going to be cast. There we go. So now we have a really simple little output user interface. I'm going to overlay some buttons on the side here. Probably don't want to do that in real life. Probably want to use a barrier so that these don't get overwritten. But again, this is a really simple test interface. So let's have it select 2 actors and select 2 movies. So he's up there and over there. Seriously? What happened to that guy? Oh yeah. Told you I love this tool. Oh, come on. I'm loving this tool more by the minute. What is going on with this guy? Why is he over there? Now he's okay. Let's go ahead and put margins on those ones as well. Where did the margins go? Oh, there he is. Now we'll go down to the buttons and add the margins into them. And so let's have this one. Select actor 2. Select actor 1. Select movie 2. Select movie 1. Okay, so now we have a few simple little buttons and things on the screen there. I think that'll be good. So let's make sure we actually give those some meaningful IDs. So for this first button here, this is going to be button movie 1, button movie 2, button actor 1, and button actor 2. There we go. Okay. And do we have some, let's actually for these guys, so he's title, description, name. This one here is the cast, so let's call that cast. And then this one here, we'll call that filmography. There. Okay, so now we have a nice little test interface. Now we're going to want to hook these buttons up and have them do something interesting. So let's go to our main activity. First thing I need to do is get our view model. So I'm going to say private LIVEDATA var view model is going to be of type movie view model. And we're going to get that by saying view model providers. Oops, I need to actually bring in my dependency. So let's go over to our build.gradle. And I'm going to get rid of that file tree dependency. Boom. We have our Android X lifecycle extensions 2.0.0. Again, this is the version at the point of recording this video. Make sure you take a look at the website that I pointed to in the slides. And let's get rid of this lives directory because I don't want him. There we are. So now I'm going to sync. That's going to read in that lifecycle extensions guy. And I now should be able to say view model providers. Really? So I now should be able to say view model providers. And why is it not showing up? Okay, that's interesting. So Android Studio wasn't giving it to me as an option when I hit Control Space, but it gives me as an option when I Alt Enter on him. Huh, that's very odd. So view model providers of this, that's going to get a provider scoped to the activity. And then I'm going to say get movie view model class.java. Now the class gives me a Kotlin K class object. The .java gives me the actual Java class object that I need because this API is defined in Java. This will return me an instance of movie view model. And I can now say view model equals that. Boom. So now I have access to my view model. Yay. So what I'm going to do here is observe the various things in there and update them on the screen. I probably should have added a couple fields to just list all the movies. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to go ahead and get all the movies. And, actually, we really should add that. I forgot about that. So let's come in here and we're going to add in another thing, maybe up at the top here for all the movies. And then all the actors, just have a couple little blobs for them. Hopefully this will all fit nicely on the screen. Again, this is just a simple test interface, and these cast and filmography really aren't that big. So I'm going to do this through the text, just so it's a little simpler. So at the top here, I'm going to add him in. This is going to be all movies. And I will have his 0dp, 0dp height, margin there. So start to start apparent, top to top apparent. Let's do end to end of parent. And we'll have all movies. Let's do all actors as well. And start to start, end to end. We'll say top to bottom of all movies. And this guy is going to say bottom to top of all actors. And then this guy is going to say bottom to top of title. And then we'll change this guy. Start is start of parent. Top is going to be to bottom of all actors. And let's see if that actually looks about right. So I also need to, let's see, so start, end, that looks good. So where are these not showing up? Let's make this be all actors. Looks like I can't have a chain at the top and another chain at the bottom. So I'm going to have to move these guys actually below the movie title description and all that stuff. Fun! So let's take these guys. Hopefully this will do what I want it to do. Change this guy to be parent. So that looks good. So before cast, let's paste these ones in. He's going to be constraint top to bottom of the name. So he's going to go there. And then bottom to top of all actors. That sounds good. Then this one here, top to bottom of all movies. That's good. Bottom to top of cast. And then cast is going to be bottom to top of, actually top to bottom of all actors. There we go. Okay, so now we have our title, description, actor name, all movies, all actors, cast, and filmography. Whew. Okay, that all looks like those are good. Okay, now I'm in good shape. So let's go ahead and set up some data here. So I'm going to say view model dot all movies observe. I'm going to use the activity as the lifecycle owner. I'm going to pass in observers. This is my single argument method constructor here, my SAM constructor. I'm going to get a list of movies. I want to convert that into a string, and I'm just going to have one movie name per line. So I'm going to say it.map. Well, let's actually say if it's non-null. Then I'm going to say it.map. Actually, we'll do a join to string. So join to string with new lines in between each line. So that's my separator. And the string that I want to create from a movie, I'm just going to use the movie title. So it.title, just kind of like that. So what this is going to do is the it join to string is going to say for each movie in that list, that's the list of movies, I'm going to get the title and separate them by a new line. So nice simple way to display all the movies there. We'll do the same kind of thing for the actors. And except this time we're going to say the name of the actor. And that should display them on the screen. Let's go ahead and run this just to see if that much works. If it does, we should see a list of actors and a list of movies. Okay, so far nothing. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on. Oh, actually, it's pretty obvious what's going on. I went ahead and got this string and I didn't do anything with it. I need to actually put it on the screen. So let's come in here and look those fields up. So I'm going to do a find view by ID for a text view. And I'm going to say r.id.allMovies. I'll say val allMovies equals that. We'll do the same thing for all actors. And then inside here, I'm going to say allMovies equals. Now, allmovies.text equals that. Now, if this is null, the result of this entire it.let is going to be null. If I set the text to null, it's just going to use a blank on the screen. I could use Elvis down here and say no movies in database, something like that. We'll go ahead and do the same thing here. No actors in database. And I'll say all actors.text equals that. And let's try running that now. Hopefully we'll actually see the actor list and the movie list show up this time. Yay! So we got our 4 movies, we got our 5 actors there. So far so good. Now let's deal with selecting the movies and have them update things on the screen. So we will say, let's find the buttons. That's going to be button actor 1, button actor 2, get them for the movies as well. There we go. Let's set up what those guys do. So we'll say actor 1 button, set on click listener. When the actor 1 button's clicked, we're going to say view model dot selected actor equals. Now we need to actually set him to a specific actor. So when the actor 1 button is clicked, we have to go and look him up in the database. So we're going to say database, whoops, dot get actor A1. And this is going to be dot value equals that. Now, once again, this is running in the user interface thread. The button handlers are all happening when the user is interacting with the user interface. So this block is running on the user interface thread, which means I need to run this in the background and say post value instead of set value. Kind of like that. And I can do the same thing for the actor 2 button. And then the same thing for the movies. Boom. So that should set those guys. Now, when those get set, that's going to drive the movies to be looked up and displayed on the screen. So what I want to do is listen to the view model. So view model dot selected movie observe. And when that selected movie changes, I want to update some stuff on the screen. So I had for the movie title and description. So title and description are the IDs on the fields. Let's look them up. So didn't I call that title? I guess I did. It just wasn't showing up for some reason. Android Studio, I absolutely love you. Of course, it would help if I could actually spell. There we go. So when the selected movie changes, I'm going to say title.text equals it. Now, again, the movie could be null, so let's make sure we check that. So it question mark dot let. Oh, actually, let's do it this way. If the title's not null, let's use the title. Otherwise, no movie selected. For description, we'll use the description or no movie selected. So Elvis is coming very handy here. We don't have to have an if statement around this. We just say, if the movie is not null, get the title. If the title were null for some reason, we go ahead and go to no movie selected as well. But in the movie, we don't allow title to be null. So if the movie exists, we're going to use the title. Otherwise, we're going to say no movie selected. Same for the description. And let's do the same kind of thing for the selected actor. And we need to get the, what did I call it? Did I just call it name? I called it name. So we'll get the name field up here as well. We'll say name.text is it name, otherwise no actor selected. Boom. And let's see what happens when we run this now. So to start with, note that this data is blank. We're not getting no actor selected or no movie selected. The reason for that is we don't currently have a value in selected movie or selected actor. Because we don't have a value, this observer is not immediately kicked off, so we don't do these sets. Now, if we wanted that to happen, we would have to, when these guys are created in our view model, initialize them. So maybe I say apply value equals null. And we can do the same thing in each place. If I do this, there's now a value. As soon as I observe it, this will trigger these guys on the screen. So when I rerun this, we should see no movie selected and no actor selected. And boom, no movie selected, no actor selected. So far, so good. Now we want to have what happens when we click on these movies. Let's click on select movie 1. And surprise, surprise, nothing is happening. Let's see if we can figure out why that's not happening. So select movie 1. We say when the movie 1 button is clicked, I'm going to run in the background, selected actor, post value. Oh, well, hey, that might help. This should be selected movie, right? Ah, the wonders of cut and paste errors. And when we tried to do a get actor for M1, it didn't find it, which is why we didn't see anything happen on the screen. So let's try this one more time. Watch those cut and paste errors. Select movie 1, boom, transporter, Jason Statham kicks a guy in the face. Select movie 2, transporter 2, he kicks a bunch of guys in the face. Select actor 1, Jason Statham. Select actor 2, The Rock. Yay. So now we want to fill in these other 2 blocks down here, the cast of the movies and the actual filmography of the people. So we're going to listen to viewModel.resolvedCast observe. Oops, not observe forever, just observe. And inside here, note that we're going to get a list of pairs. So the first item in that pair, what did we say he was? So the first is the actor's name. The second one is the role name. So let's say val role name equals, well, we actually have to do a join to string on this. So we'll say it dot join to string, again with new lines. And the string that we want to create from each of these is going to be, let's first of all say val role name equals it dot second, and the actor name is it dot first. And now I can just say, let's create a string that is $role name colon $actor name. Boom. So we're going to get a list of role colon actor, and so on and so on. Now, there's a nice little trick we can do with this assignment. We can do what's called a destructuring declaration here. Instead of doing the two separate val actor and val role, I can say val actor role equals it. Ooh, and then inside here, say role actor. And what this is doing is, inside the pair object, there are a couple methods called component 1 and component 2 for the first thing and the second thing. Whenever you have component 1, component 2, component 3, and so on, you can do a single declaration like this. That's called a destructuring declaration. The first thing inside the parentheses is assigned to component 1, second is assigned to component 2, and so on. Note that they are component 1, component 2, as opposed to component 0, component 1. So just because I have those methods, boom, I can do this. And you can do that in any object you want to as well. Inside your class definition, you can define component 1, component 2, component 3, and be able to do these destructuring declarations. So boom, I'm going to put up the role and the actor inside there. That's our cast. Let's do the same kind of thing for filmography. And inside here, we're going to get a list of movies. So I'm going to do the same kind of thing, it joined to string with new lines in between. And we're just going to use the names of the movies inside there. So we'll say it.name, a title. There we go. And of course, I'm forgetting to actually set the fields again. This wouldn't have done anything other than create the string. So let's assign the fields on this. This is the cast.text equals. And again, we will do the no movie selected. And actually, it looks like this, that's always going to be a non-null. So we can just leave it empty. And we'll do the same thing, leave this empty. Let's have this be filmography.text equals that as well. Boom. So now when we run this, we should see the other sections being plugged in. And he had trouble running it. Let's try running one more time. Let's see, attempt to invoke string on actor get ID with null reference. So let's come into here and take a look. So apparently the selected actor is null. That makes sense because we explicitly set it. So we should have inside here saying it let. So if we have an actor, we'll do this. Otherwise, let's go ahead and set the value to an empty list. Now, why didn't this error happen earlier? Note that what we just added in here is we just added this observation. If nobody is observing this, this code never gets triggered, so we never actually update filmography. Now that somebody is observing filmography, we're going to update it. So now we're doing this add source selected actor. He was set to null. It triggered through and we tried to resolve him and we couldn't do that. So now we're going to say, go ahead and only look up the actor if he exists, otherwise use an empty list. And we probably want to do the same thing here. So that if the cast comes in, and the cast is, well, let's see, cast in this case is always going to be non-null, so we're okay here. I think that one's going to be fine. Let's go ahead and run him. And now we have all of our information. Let's select movie 1. Boom. We now have our list of the actors for the movie. Select movie 2, the list of that. Let's select an actor. And now we get, here's the movies that Jason Statham is in. Select actor 2, The Rock. Here's the movies that The Rock is in. Yay. So that all seems to be working pretty nicely. But really importantly now, let's see what happens when I rotate this screen. I'm going to rotate. And I forgot to set the auto rotate turned on. So now you'll see that we have the same data showing up as we did before. The same selection still held because our view model instance is still there. The activity got destroyed and recreated, but we still have our data saved in our view model. And that's fantastic. That helps us out a whole lot here. Now, if we wanted to save this data across runs, so if I went ahead and rotated out back here again, and let's back out of the application, we will run him again. Note that we're back to an empty screen here because it created a new instance of the view model. There's no selections inside there. If we wanted to retain those, we'd need to save those inside of our shared preferences, like I demonstrated in the slides. Not going to go through it in this example because this example is running a little long to start with, but keep in mind the idea here is that you could save this data, and the next time that the view model is loaded up, boom, load that data. So now let's take a look at what happens if instead of us managing all these threads, we let the database do that. And later on when we describe Room, we're going to see the database can do that for us. So I'm going to create a copy of this view model. I'll call it view model 2. Surprisingly enough, we'll put a view model 2 on there. Now executor, note that when I define him outside of a class, he belongs to the package. So I already have him defined in the original view model 1, so I don't need him here again. I'm actually not going to use him in here to start with. I'm going to let the database do the work for us. So what I really want to do is anytime we have these executor type calls, we're going to do that inside of the database itself. So let's take a look at what we're going to have to do. We're going to have the database create that live data for us. So I'm going to go ahead and copy these couple guys to start with. And let's go over to the database class. And let's do a fun all movies async. I'm just going to paste that code in there just like that. So what I'm doing here, whoops, and we'll have this one be fun all actors async, kind of like that. And we'll just call those. So now we've moved that functionality into our database so the database can manage the threading for us. And this also allows the database, if it wants to hold on to this guy behind the scenes and set up a trigger to keep updating him as we go. So we're going to do the same kind of thing. Let's go back to our view model 2 for our lookups here where we're calling roles for movie and things like that. So if we go back to our database, I'm going to add let's go ahead and copy these two guys down just so I have the names. And we'll call them async. And he's going to do almost exactly the same thing that we did above here. And he's going to call roles for movie, passing in movie ID. And then this one, we're going to do the same kind of thing. Movies for actor, passing in the actor ID. And let's make sure that we get our types set right on these guys. So roles for movie should be returning a list of roles, and this should be returning a list of movie. There we go. So now we have our database doing this behind the scenes. Let's think about what the database is doing. We're going to ask the database to get movies asynchronously. What he needs to do is, first of all, hand us a live data that we can listen to. We'll observe that, and behind the scenes, he starts a thread to go do some fetching. Once he's done with his fetching, he's going to update that live data that he gave to us. So basically, he's handling us a box. We're going to look at the box, and when the box gets stuff inside of it, we're going to respond to it. So let's go back to our view model. And inside here, we're going to change things up a little bit here. Now the cast, what we're going to want to do is create a mediator, and that mediator is going to go and ask the database to get roles for movie async, and then listen to that roles for movie async, and when he's actually been updated, update the actual mediator. So we're going to use transformations.switchMap here. So transformations.switchMap. And what this guy does for us is we're going to listen to selected movie, and we're going to have a little function inside here that is going to return a live data to listen to. So we're going to say database dot, which one was this? This was roles for movie async, passing in it.id. And then I'm going to get rid of all the rest of this stuff. And let's take a look at what this is doing. So whenever selected movie changes, we need to create a live data that the transformation switch map will listen to. Now, I don't want to look at the code for transformation switch map. It's a little hairy, but the basic idea is that when the selected movie changes, so we're observing him as a source for this created mediator live data. When the selected movie data changes, we're going to ask the database to create a loader helper for us. So this guy's going to run and actually load the data for us. And we're going to listen to that loader. When the loader returns data, that data is going to get dumped into the mediator live data that we've created over here. So there's going to be basically 3 live datas involved. The source, the target mediator live data, and then a loader that's created each time the source changes. So this should set things up. Now there is a potential bug here. If selected movie is null, SwitchMap has a bug in it where if we return null from this block, nothing will happen. Now let's see what roles for movie async does. If I come to him, he's always returning a database here. He assumes the movie ID is non-null. Now that's going to be a problem because if it's null, we're going to call it, we're going to get an exception at runtime. So I want to fix that. If the movie coming in is null, I want to set it up so that we return a live data that's an empty list. So I'm going to say it ? .let, so meaning if I actually have a movie, the result is going to be, hey database, give me a loader, fill it in later on. Otherwise, I'm going to create a mutable live data passing in an empty list. And it's going to be an empty list of, this is roles, right? Oh, actually that's not until later API. Sorry, showing you the future. You don't want to see the future yet. So I have to do a .apply. And he needs to have a list of role value equals empty list. There we go. So we're going to create a little dummy helper here if the value is null. Now, if we didn't have the Elvis expression on the end here, then the it ? let is going to return null if it is null. SwitchMap is going to completely ignore if that's null. Let's take a real quick peek at him. Hey, I want to scare you with some fun code here. So we're going to run this SwitchMap function that's being passed in, and that's going to be new live data, which is null. If we take a look at what's happening with this guy, we're setting the source to new live data. If the source is not null, then we're going to actually set the value. So basically, if the source coming in is null, we completely ignore it and don't make any change. So that's the bug in this switch map guy. It gets me all riled up. I'm not terribly thrilled about it. But this is a very effective workaround by adding in this, let me create a dummy live data. What I started to show you was in a slightly later version of this API, you can pass in an initial value in the parentheses there. That's not supported in 2.0.0. So I'm going to do the same kind of thing for filmography down here. So we'll say transformations.switchMap. We're going to listen to the selected actor. And when the selected actor changes, I'm going to say if he's not null. And we'll do the same kind of Elvis at the end here. It's going to be an empty list of movies. We want to have database dot movies for actor async. passing in it.id. And then I can get rid of all that mess there. So this is now simplifying a lot of stuff. We don't have to handle the execution quite as much for some of these guys. Let's fix these ones up here as well. All movies is just going to be database all movies async. Boom. All actors, the same kind of thing. So we're just going to ask the database, give me the live data for all the actors in all the movies. And what's really nice about this later, when we actually see this with Room as our database manager, is that if we add or remove movies or actors from the database, behind the scenes, it's going to do a trigger, which is going to actually update this live data that the database gave us. And so now we don't have to worry about requerying all movies and all day actors. It's automated for us, which is really nifty. Now, with the way we have the database set up right now, we really can't do anything to help the resolved cast here. We'll take a look underneath when we discuss Room of possibly setting up a helper function in the database to actually do this for us. But right now, we actually need to, in the background, walk through all the items in the map and for each item, look it up. So we don't have a place right here to just have a nice, convenient make one call to the database. We could put that in and move all this code in there. I'm not going to for right now. The thing I wanted to demonstrate here was the idea of these transformations, switch map, and so on. So what I want to do here is now switch to Movie View Model 2. Let's go to the main activity, come to the top here and change this to Movie View Model 2, and there as well. And we should be able to get the same results. Let's go ahead and run him. So now we see basically the same stuff we had before. I'm going to hit Select Movie 1. Boom, we get all those coming up. Select Movie 2. Boom, Select Actor 1. Select Actor 2. So all of our data processing is working just fine. And if we take a look at this, everything we've done in the activity is now a very simple listen to something in the view model and update it on the screen. Listen to something on the screen and update in the view model. So there's really not much thought going on in our activity. All of our data handling and all the consistency of our data is actually being done inside of our view model itself. Now let's see if we can clean this up just a little bit. We'll notice that the code here and the code here is very, very similar to get around that bug in switch map. Let's see if we can actually make our own switch map function that does this. I'm going to come up here and say fun switch map. And we're going to pass into him the actual live data we want to listen to. So we'll call it source. And let's make this be a generic function with t being passed in. Note that all I care about is I'm observing the live data. I don't care that it's mutable or not. It can be, but it doesn't matter. All the switch map cares about is that. And now I want to have that little switch map function. Let's actually call this x and y. So live data x coming in. And then I will have my function is going to be, I have an x coming in, it might be null. And I'm going to return a y. Note that y is not null. So this is the definition of a function in Kotlin. We can pass in him, he'll be a lambda. And this is going to become transformations.switchMap, passing in the source. And we're going to run a little function here. Note that the function coming in here, it says x bang. That means it's from Java. It doesn't know if it's nullable or not. So I'm going to have to assume it might be null. So I'm going to first of all run that function. I'm going to say val value equals function. Oh, actually, I want to have it return a live data, which might be null. So we can return null from that. So I'm going to say function passing in it. That's going to give me some value. And then I want to say if value is not null, then what I want to do is return the value. Otherwise, I want to return some default value. So I need to pass in a default value as well. So I will say default value whoops, is going to be of type Y. And this actually, we need to do that whole mutable live data thing here. So mutable live data, Y dot apply, value equals that, kind of like that. And what is he not like about this? Oh, it's because I actually have this value. It's seeing that one. Let's change this to be this dot value. That makes him happy. So now what I'm doing here is the same thing I did before. I'm going to create a switch map, switching on this source. So I'm going to listen to that source for a change. If my little function that I use returns a null, I'm going to return a wrapped up version of the default value inside of mutable live data. So we'll see down here my default value was empty list, so I can pass him in. If my function doesn't return null, I'm just going to return it. Now we'll notice that in this particular situation, what I'm doing is saying use value if it's non-null, otherwise use this. So I actually don't need a let here. I can just say value Elvis mutable function. I can even shorten this some more. Like that. So what I'm returning in this is either the function if it's non-null. If it is null, boom, just return a new mutable live data with that default value. So now I can clean these guys up a little bit. I'm going to call this cast old. And instead I'm going to say switch map. And we'll notice now for this guy, his parameter coming in is a nullable movie because I've defined this function up here myself. So now I know it's nullable. And then inside there, I'm just going to come up here and say it question mark dot let, boom, just like that. Now I also need to pass in empty list as the default value. So now I've set this guy up. It question mark dot let this, if it is null, the whole value of this expression is null. And then because that's null, my switch map function up here will just create the mutable live data surrounding him. Boom, nice and simple. So now we've got him set up there. I can comment this guy out. We can do the same thing down here. So I'll say filmography old. And this is just going to be my switch map function, passing in empty list as the default. And boom, boom. You can do the same kind of thing there. So if the actor is null, this whole expression is null, which will treat us to using that little default value. Now we can do one more little thing, which is a really neat little Kotlin thing that I'm going to show you very quickly. That's called an extension function. We're going to pretend that switch map is a function defined inside live data. I can do that by saying live data x dot. And then I'm just going to comment this other guy out. And what this means is this means pretend that I have defined switch map as a function inside live data. Now, the thing that you have to worry about on this one is that you can only use functions that are visible inside live data. Live data is passed in as this, so I no longer need this parameter. Boom. Instead of saying source, I just say this. And now, let's comment him out. I can say selected movie dot switch map. Boom. And this just reads a little bit nicer. It's saying start with the selected movie and switch based on him as opposed to having just a function for him. And I can do the same thing down here. Selected actor dot switch map. There we go. Now behind the scenes, this is basically creating a switch map function that passes in selected actor as its first parameter. So it really is doing what we did before. It just reads much more like I'm defining a function on selected actor. You'll notice all these yellow ones, these are extension functions. They're taking a receiver, so some object, and then adding a new dummy method on top of it. So now we've got all these guys. What is he complaining about? Declaration is type inferred from platform call. So in this case, transformation switch map is actually returning a Java type, and it's not quite sure what it's going to be. I'm going to hit Alt Enter on him to say specify return type explicitly, and now we'll see it's live data Y, and that's going to clean the error up. This way, we can actually see from Kotlin that it's returning a live data, and we don't have to just assume what it is returning. So let's try running that one more time just to make sure it still works. It should. And there's our data. Select movie 1, select movie 2, select actor 1, select actor 2. Boom. Everything's working just beautifully. So that's the basic idea behind live data. Now you don't have to use this switch map function. You can do it explicitly the way that we did, well, not that guy, but the way we did in Movies View Model 1, where we're explicitly setting up a mediator live data, adding the source explicitly, and then saying what to do behind the scenes. That's one way we can do it. If the database returns a live data for us, it's just a little simpler to use this switch map once you get a feel for what it's doing. Just keep in mind there's basically 3 live data involved. The source, so this is the guy we're listening to, the live data that we're creating with the switch map call, that's what filmography is going to point to, and then the live data we're getting from the database. And that live data from the database, we're creating a new instance of him every time things change. That's our little loader helper who goes off and tries to locate the data for us. Once that is found, he's going to update the filmography live data.